Hi y'all, it's Annelies, and this video is going to be my review of Parting Stone, both of the company and the services that they offer. I'm going to break this video into 4 chapters in the hopes that it can be as useful or helpful for anybody as possible. And those 4 chapters will be 1. What is Parting Stone? 2. Why I and my family decided to use Parting Stone. 3. The whole process of Parting Stone from before placing our order to receiving the stones. And then 4. Our review of Parting Stone. And I say our as in my more detailed review and then my family's review. I wanted to make really clear chapters for this video in the event that you're somebody who is in the position that I was once in, where I turned to YouTube looking for kind of a real person's review on this company and the whole process, and all I found were videos from either professionals in this field or the company themselves, which both of those videos were very helpful, but sometimes it's just nice to know what another person thinks, like the consumer experience, which feels weird to say about this subject. So if you are somebody who already knows what Parting Stone is, I encourage you to skip around. And if you have any questions for me, please leave a comment and I'd love to help you out. I'll let you know right now, I had a very positive experience with Parting Stone, but I'll get into my review at the end. For those of you who are watching this video and you might not be currently investigating Parting Stone, but you are gonna stick around and hear me out anyway, I'll just give you kind of the warning that Parting Stone is a company that deals in post-cremation services. So if that's something that feels kind of a little too close to home right now, I know it's still close to home for me and I've already been through it. When I was taking notes for how I was gonna make this video, I was getting a little misty-eyed, so I understand, and take care of yourself. I will give you a warning right now that I can already feel it. There's gonna definitely be some emotions in this video, and I just will say thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me tell you about this thing, because this was a pretty important chapter of my life, handling all this stuff, and I'm really grateful the way it all turned out with Parting Stone. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Chapter 1, what Parting Stone is. So if you're watching this video and you do not know what Parting Stone is, this is a quote from their website on their About Us section. It says, what we do. Parting Stone offers families choosing cremation a 100% alternative to conventional ash. Our service solidifies the full amount of remains into a form that resembles a collection of smooth stones. Solidified remains are a new form of human and animal remains. So in layman's terms, I guess, if you have a loved one that passes away, and they actually also offer this service for pets as well, a loved one, whether it be person or pet, that passes away and they are cremated, you can have their remains turned into stones. Another section on their website says, our solidification service for an adult returns the full amount of remains as an average of 40 to 80 stones. The number of stones varies based on the volume of remains provided. The appearance of the solidified remains varies naturally from person to person in shape, color, and texture, making each collection uniquely beautiful. Solidified remains are an alternative to conventional ash. And even on their website, they show you some examples of what the stones could possibly look like. So if you are somebody who a loved one was cremated and you didn't want to go the conventional route of having their remains in a urn, this is a secondary option. And that's about it for what they are. And now it's time to talk about why we chose to use Parting Stone. So for our why, my Uncle Henry passed away in November of 2022, and he was cremated. And for me personally, everybody has their own thoughts and feelings about how to handle somebody after they've passed. But when our family decided to cremate him, I just never loved the idea of his ashes in an urn. And that is when I kind of started discussing with my mom about alternative options. Throughout my life, I've met different people who maybe had ashes in a necklace. I had heard about the process of turning ashes into tattoo ink. I had seen it turned into diamonds that people put in their rings. I had heard of a lot of stuff, and to be completely honest, I don't know how I came across Parting Stone. A thing I learned about much into my Parting Stone research process is that they were on Shark Tank, but funny enough, that is not how I found out about them. And I don't know how I found out about them. Maybe I was kind of Googling along the lines of like the stone thing. The reason why the ashes, I guess, just kind of made me nervous was just my concern about keeping it all safe and protected, and the idea of anything spilling or knocking over or trying to share his ashes between our family. It just kind of, there was something about it that just didn't sit right with me, and handling all that stuff. It made me a little bit nervous. And so when I stumbled upon Parting Stone, however it was immediately appealing to me because of the idea of getting many of these physical stones. They weren't like little pieces, they were like rocks, little garden stones that you'd find in your backyard or at a creek. And there was just something that felt a little bit more, not only just secure in the fact that nothing could spill, but also there was something that felt beautiful about it and a little bit more light, because I think there's a little bit of heaviness that comes from, for me, my personal connotation of looking at an urn, and it just, I don't know, I think also I picture a classic gray urn, and there's just something that feels a little bit heavier to me about that. But going on the Parting Stone website and seeing that a lot of these stones, the average seemed to be kind of like eggshell white cream in color. Some of them are kind of a copper color, some of them are kind of pink, some of them are gray, but there was just something that felt very pretty. It felt like that if this was the route that we went, we could have these stones on display. It just I don't know how else to phrase it than saying it felt a little bit more comforting. I think that's a good word, is that the stones felt comforting. And I think there was also this idea is that like being able to interact with it. Yeah, I think, yeah. So I brought this to my mom, and she was immediately like it spoke to her as well. And so I started doing my research and kind of looking, like I said, on YouTube, and I found a lot of professionals and videos from the company, which those were both great. And it was actually really nice to see the videos from the company because they show you a little bit of behind the scenes, and you get to know some of the people who, whether they presently work there or not, but worked there at one point, were a part of this process at one point. And those videos were nice in seeing kind of like, I guess, the ethos that they teach at the company. They had a small video with one of the people who worked on the process of solidification of the stones. And they said something really like, it was really important for me to hear in a way that it didn't feel scripted. So either kudos to the marketing team, or that just, it really feels like, it felt authentic. And this person said, there is no margin for error at this job, in this work. There is no margin for error. People are trusting us, and we need to honor that trust. And like, that was something that also made me go like, this place feels right. Like, there's just something about this that feels right. And so my mom and I talked it over, and after just looking at other like alternatives and whatever, we finally landed on, it felt like Parting Stone was going to be the route that we were going to go. The other reason why Parting Stone seemed just like a really great option for our family is the fact that these remains would be turned into 40 to 80 stones is what they kind of estimate, which obviously there's a wide margin there, but let's just talk on the low end of getting 40 stones. My mom is the second youngest of 7 siblings, and so my uncle was in the middle of those 7, and so there are 7 siblings, and then there are 20 plus nieces and nephews. And to also account for if we wanted to spread his ashes, if you will, at one of his favorite places, and also bring one to my grandparents' tombstone. That appealed to both my mom and I right away, because we knew that we could share him with everybody, and everybody could do what they wanted with their stone, but at least it wasn't going to be, I don't mean to sound crass, but like this messy divvying up of ashes. It felt a lot more secure and crisp and easy. And so that was also the thing that for a big family was immediately appealing about Parting Stone and the whole solidification process. So there was definitely a point where it was very clear that this was the route that we were going to go, is to go through Parting Stone to solidify my uncle's remains. There was like a moment where it was clear that this is how we were going to kind of memorialize him. And my mom was very locked in pretty pretty quickly, and I was pretty sure of it too, but there was definitely a day that it became very real. And that was the day that I had my free over the phone consultation with a parting stone specialist, if you will. They offer free over the phone consultations. You just book it on their website, and they call you, and it says like 15 minutes, but I might have spoken to this woman for maybe 20, and I felt like I probably could have kept asking her questions, and she wasn't gonna like turn me away. After this phone call, it was so like I was so certain, and I was really emotional because I just knew. I knew this was the right place. So I looked back through my emails, and I was able to find the person's name who I spoke to, and her name was Aisha. And if there's anybody from Parting Stone who watches this video, if this can get to Aisha in some way, thank you. Oh gosh. Like, I asked a lot of questions that were on the website, and there was never a moment where she made me feel like I was stupid or wasting her time, or like that's answered on the website. And I was kind of like going over things and being very like, okay, can you just remind me of this process? And she was so kind and patient and handled the conversation with care, because obviously it's very emotional for some people. Yours truly. And it's also really serious. Like, here I am entrusting this company. I'm gonna send something away to, I think it's New Mexico. I'm gonna send my loved one's remains to this company, and I have to entrust that they are gonna take care of him and do everything right. And that's a lot of trust to put into strangers and a company. And something that was so nice is that she reassured me, and at no point did it ever feel like a sales pitch, and she answered all my questions, and she was able to figure out what I needed to hear, and shared with me a lot of information. Like, I have my notes here that I took. She told me, like, I wasn't necessarily asking verbatim about these questions, but like based on the questions I was asking, she was sharing with me information like that you get email updates throughout the process, that they don't use any dyes, there's a small additive in water, and then your loved one's remains. Then some really important things too, that there's never more than one person in one workstation at a time, and they have this thing called a chain of custody, which is like there's a lot of barcodes and things, but whenever somebody goes to work on your loved one's stones, that they have to kind of scan in and say what time it is, and it tracks all that stuff. They have to take photos, that they're working on it at that specific spot. When they stop, they have to scan in again, and it's very clear who worked on what part of the process, and that there's also photo and video being taken at all times, and that if I wanted to contact them and ask for photo updates or video updates, that they could give me that. I never ended up taking them up on that offer actually, but it's just really nice to know that I could. Like, I could say, hey, oh, what's going on in this process? But I also have to say, they did send a lot of emails with updates, and I never felt like I had to reach out. But if you were somebody who was a little extra, nervous, that they'll talk to you. And so, like, after that phone call, it was just so real, because I felt so reassured, and these are emotional, like positive emotional tears, because it just feels really nice to feel seen. And I didn't get made feel, nothing was trivialized. Like, she held space for me and my emotions, and it must be such a hard job. Bless those people. But yeah, so if you're somebody who's considering using Parting Stone, I highly, highly recommend booking a consultation just to answer any other questions that you might come up with. Because like I said, they know so much, and they kind of hear your question and figure out the other questions that you might also be thinking about but not knowing how to like articulate. And she let me think. That's the other thing. So many times you talk to a representative and they just want to kind of get off the phone, but it's like she let me think about my questions. I had a bunch of notes, but I was able to kind of pivot and talk, and it was just really nice. So thank you to Aisha. You were amazing. Thanks to Parting Stone for having people like her working on such delicate things. I could imagine the hiring process is grueling for this company, as it should be. But yeah, anyway. Okay. So now it's time to move on to chapter 3, which is the process, the logistics, and the details. So what I wanted to share is the prices, what their timeline estimates are, and how many stones they estimate you get. And then I'm going to go date by date what my experience was with before making the order to doing the order and then receiving the stones, as well as all the update emails that I got, and then how many stones we actually got. So we placed our order with Parting Stone in September of 2025, but as of filming this is January of 2026, and all of the information that is currently on the website is the same as it was when I placed my order back in September. So right now, for the amount of stones that you get, they estimate 40 to 80 stones for complete remains. Now, for Parting Stone, you can use this for both people and pets. They do ask you if it's for a dog or a cat, but the price is the same for both. So the price for people is $2,495, and the price for pets is $1,195. They estimate that the whole process will take 10 to 14 weeks. That was on the website when I placed the order, and that was in my first email when I got the confirmation of my order. And in a lot of the updates, actually, it consistently said that the estimated process time was 10 to 14 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and break down the timeline of everything, and then I'll also share with you the update email timeline that I got. Like I mentioned in the previous chapter, they give you update emails on the process once they receive the ashes, and I got a lot of those updates. So I wanted to share with you the timeline on that as well. So starting with the consultation I had on August 7th, and I didn't end up placing the order until September 2nd. In that essentially month time, they never reached out to me to like market to me and go, so you making up your mind yet? Are you gonna go with Parting Stone? They let me be. And I really respect and appreciate that, because this is not something you can be a salesman on. This is something very delicate, and I felt like they were very respectful. Order confirmed, like I said, September 2nd, 2025. Then what they do is they send a box to your house so that way you can send the remains back to their facilities. That box arrived at my house on September 4th, 2025. So 2 days later, priority mail showed up. So it did take me a few weeks to pack everything up, but I sent it all out on September 19th, which was a Friday, and I got then an email from Parting Stone saying that they received the ashes on September 24th, so 5 days later, including a weekend. Then I got an email on October 29th saying that the stones were being shipped home, and I received the stones on October 30th. The estimated completion date that I got in my original email was December 3rd, and it arrived more than a full month before that. Now, like I said, I did get a lot of update emails. So my first update email was on October 10th. They received it on 9/24. On 10/10, they said remains are being refined. On 10/17, they said stones being formed. 10/22 was remains being solidified. And then 10/27 was stones being polished. And then once again, stones being shipped home. 10/29, received stones 10:30. On September 24th, they received everything and said the current time to solidify was 10 to 14 weeks, and that the estimated completion would be on December 3rd, 2025. In total, it took only 5 weeks. So obviously, I know they give that timeline because maybe there are busier times than others that they can't predict. Maybe they do it on purpose to surprise and delight and send it to you early. But just to share with you what my experience was, they said 10 to 14 weeks. It took 5. And that was actually really nice because we thought it was going to come in around Christmas, and it came in right before the start of November. And as for receiving the stones, I'm going to show you what they came in, and then I'm also going to show you some of the stones. The stones we've already shared with all of my uncle's siblings, so all of my mom's siblings. They have already received their stones. So I have our share here that I can show you, and I'll show you the box they came in and all that stuff. I will let you know right now that we got 67 stones of varying sizes. Obviously, I don't know if the sizes are consistent across the board, but I will show you the varying sizes that we received. So we received this wooden box here. This was in a cardboard box, and then it was this nice wooden box in here. This little lid slides open. On the top, there is the Parting Stone logo, but what I like is that it is very simple and doesn't scream at you. So if this was what was going to be on display, I feel like it's rather classy. On here's a sticker that has my uncle's name, Henry Veldman, and then there's this little grabby part that we slide open, and then this is a little preview of what's in here. In here, all 67 stones were vacuum sealed into one bag with packaging and bubble wrap and all that stuff. And in here, you get this bag, which says Parting Stone, and it has his name in very nice handwriting in case you wanted to keep these stones in a bag. And then we also got these little bags that I would say would fit maybe 2 large stones. They're little drawstring bags, maybe 1. On the phone, they did specify that we could have asked for more bags. I just forgot to, but we also ended up putting the stones in their own little wooden keepsake box anyway. So there's this little card in here that just has some basic information. And then there was this paper card that says, "We take every chance to remind our staff that their work has profound impact on families. If you have a moment, it would mean so much to our staff member, Roberto, to receive a note about how the stones have impacted you. Thank you from all of us at Parting Stone." And then in here it just has an address on the outside and then a blank card on the inside, which I have been meaning to write a letter to Roberto saying thank you, because I could tell that care was put into this work. So that was everything that came in the box, and now I'm going to show you some of the stones. In our living room, we have this little dish here, and this is a wooden shell dish that was actually in my uncle's house. It was one of his pieces of decor, and I just kind of thought it was fitting to put some of his stones on here. There were 3 different sizes of stone that we received. So there was the larger stone here, which I have pretty large hands, and this fits in the palm of my hand pretty nicely. Then there was the medium stone, and then there was the small stone. And the small stone, I would say, is about the size of a $50 piece. I will go ahead and put a video on screen now just kind of showing you the size of these stones. But like I said, there were 3 different sizes. It didn't feel like there was a rhyme or reason to what size stones. And like I said, it was 67 stones of varying sizes, but there were enough large stones for all of my aunts and uncles to get a couple of large stones, and there were enough medium stones for all of the nieces and nephews to get a medium stone. If I were to estimate, I would say it felt like there was about 1/4 of them were bigger, 1/4 of them were small, and 2/4 were in the middle somewhere. The thing about these stones is that they are kind of like a pebble white, with a little bit of like a beigey tinge to it, but like an off-white. And you can see little flecks of something that makes it look kind of natural. They're definitely not perfect. It's not like they were put in a mold or anything like that. I don't know how they shape them, but they do feel really smooth and they're soft. They don't shine or anything like that. Like if I were to put direct light on them, it's not like it's glossy, but they are very smooth. You know, on some of the stones, there's little imperfections that just kind of make each one feel unique. But otherwise, they're all relatively the same shape, relatively the same color. They're smooth, and I think they look really pretty. They feel even. There's no like large bumps or anything. They're not like slick, so they feel like they're gonna slip out of your hands or anything like that. They're not too, I feel like they feel like classic stones in your backyard or skipping stones at the lake, like just kind of a nice shape. But these are the stones, and I think that covers everything as far as the process and logistics and details go. I forgot to add this part in. So I did want to note when it came to placing the order for Parting Stone, I did that by myself as an independent person. So like I said, my uncle passed away in 2022. We had his ashes from where he was cremated at, and we had been holding on to those for a couple of years. So you can absolutely bring ashes that you've had and bring them to Parting Stone. It doesn't have to be something that was done right away. They apparently have partnerships with funeral homes, but like I said, that's not the process we went through. Literally went through as an independent person, just purchasing on their website and placing the order on their website. And finally, it's time for chapter 4. My review and my family's review of Parting Stone. I feel like it was pretty clear throughout this video, but I could not swear by Parting Stone enough. I could not sing their praises enough. I think what Parting Stone has given me and my family is closure and peace in a way that we can remember in my own Hendity and have something that feels a little bit more uplifting. I don't know how else to put it. A phrase that the creator of Parting Stone used at the end of his Shark Tank episode was that Parting Stone is a comforting alternative to traditional ashes. And I think the operative word there is comforting in a simple way of, I can hold this in my hand. This is much more comforting than, to me, than cuddling an urn. We all get a piece of him. And like I said, we have these stones on display in our home, and it just feels like he's here with us in one way or another. And so I think this is a wonderful service, and more importantly, I think that this is a really wonderful company. You don't get to say that phrase much, that this is a wonderful company, but I think it is very clear from every experience that I had with anybody at this company and the way that they've talked in interviews and in the videos that they put out, is nothing feels flashy. It's not out here to razzle dazzle you and sell you on this cool new way of alternative remains. It's just their intentions feel really genuine, and I think that's really important. And they do a really good job at instilling trust and earning your trust, more importantly. Yeah, I'm really happy that this is what we went with, and I hope if you're somebody who is watching this video who is looking into using Parting Stone, that this video has provided you some comfort or reassurance in some way. But I really couldn't endorse Parting Stone enough. This has been a very hard experience, and like I said, I feel like now we're on this side of it, where I can remember my uncle, and I have closure, and that we can. I heard this quote recently that grief is love that has no place to go. And something I think that's really nice about the stones is it gives me a place to put that love. So yeah. Once all my mom's siblings received their stones, everybody was just really moved and really, really happy. I think that's also an important piece of this story too, is that this has brought, I think, us all a lot of peace. It was really hard losing my uncle, and I think this is just a really nice way to remember him, and everybody is really, really happy with these stones and happy to have him in their homes. So that is it for my review of Parting Stone, and I hope this video was helpful if you were somebody who is in the position that I was once in, where I was kind of seeing if this was going to be right for me. And I hope with me sharing my experience, my thoughts, and the details on my experience with Parting Stone, that it can provide you some insight and some comfort, and hopefully help you in making whatever decision is right for you and your loved ones. And if you stuck around just to kind of hear me talk about this experience, I really appreciate you sticking it all the way through and giving me the space to talk about this, because like I said, it was these stones mean a lot to me, and I just wanted to talk about it in the hopes that somebody else out there found this to be something that would be right for them and their loved ones as well. If you're somebody who is seriously considering using Parting Stone and their services, I would really, really encourage you to book a consultation with them, because like I said, it's free. They don't hound you if you haven't purchased from them in X amount of days. And those are the professionals, and they can give you better information than I can. I'm just kind of giving you my layman's explanation of everything, but I really, really encourage that if you're somebody who's looking at Parting Stone, to use their consultation services, because it was absolutely totally worth it. And if you're somebody who isn't looking to use Parting Stone, but just decide to stick around and listen to me talk about this, thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. And I hope to see you in another video soon.